talk on liquid-based cytology in gynecological malignancies. Just an overview of my presentation. I'll be talking on liquid-based cytology, the various techniques available, the principles for these machines. And then we'll talk on cervical cytology. What are the advantages and disadvantages of liquid-based cytology over conventional cytology, and morphological aspects. So Dr. Sanjay Gupta has clearly, very nicely covered the infection part of cervical cytology. So I'll be concentrating mainly on cell lesions and glandular lesions, how liquid-based cytology makes a difference in presentation of these cells when it comes to cell lesions and glandular lesions. And if the topic is gynecological malignancies, so I thought maybe I can show a few slides, maybe 2-3 slides on peritoneal washes and ascitic fluids, where we actually routinely use liquid-based cytology in all effusion samples, all respiratory samples. So starting with liquid-based cytology, what is the principle? It's just a state-of-art technology with altered slide preparation technique. So in here we are using sample, we are putting the sample in a preservative fluid, so all the cells are present in a suspension of alcohol. So whether we talk of thin prep or sure prep, both these preparations are, the preservative fluids are alcohol based. So there are different liquid based techniques available, but FDA has approved 2 LBC pap tests. Thin prep was approved in 1996 and SurePath was approved in 1999. So in between, in 2000, early 2000, monoprep also came into the market and it was FDA approved, but now at present it is not available. It's not marketed. So people have come up with cheaper options. People have used cytospin for preparing liquid-based cytology, but then we do not know what kind of sensitivity and specificity is there for these kind of techniques. So what was the problem with conventional cytology? So just an example, if we are interested in these red cells here, it is possible that in conventional cytology, these cells may not be represented on the slide and they are discarded, because we know that over 80% of cells were discarded in conventional smears. Then we were using different kind of sprays or fixatives, which was leading to uneven fixation of the smear. They were missing cells because of obscuring elements like blood, inflammation, and mucus and other things. And this sample could not go for HPV testing. And that is why liquid-based cytology is important. Now we are putting the brush head into the vial in SurePath and rinsing the brush head into the liquid preservative in thin prep. So all the cells are there in the sample, and when we vortex this sample, I mean to say benign as well as malignant cells, like if these blue cells are these plastic cells, they'll be all around the sample. And when we prepare the slide from this sample, they'll be homogeneously distributed on the slide. So that's the beauty of liquid-based cytology, that everything is represented now and we are not discarding cells. Then the preservative fluid which is left after preparing the slide can be used for preparing additional slides. We can use it for DNA testing, for HPV testing, and we can actually take out a good quantity and quality of DNA from this sample. So thin prep actually works on filtration. So that's, here is the filter, and then when the cells are moving in this liquid material, the filter will attract the cells, and ultimately from the filter these cells are transported into the slide, and this kind of slide is prepared. And on microscopy we see a lot of empty spaces. So a lot of people actually, when they buy a machine for liquid-based cytology, they ask which one to go for, whether to go for thin prep or a SurePath based machine. It depends how you have been trained. So if you are trained in thin prep, people prefer thin prep. If you are trained in SurePath, people prefer SurePath. And secondly, SurePath has come up with the DTS, direct to slide, a smaller machine for maybe private labs, and a bigger machine for bigger institutes. So that is the difference between thin prep and SurePath. In ThinPrep, this filter is costly, but the machine as compared to the middle segment SurePath machine is comparatively cheaper. So the machine is cheaper, but the consumables are costly. So SurePath, this is the main machine which has been used in majority of labs, which has a prep mate, a centrifuge, and a complete automatic robotic processor. So we collect the samples here. These are the sample vials which contain the preservative fluid, and each vial will contain the brush head. So SurePath sample must contain a brush head, and thin prep sample should not contain a brush head. Then we take out the sample after vorticing into the this centrifuge tube, and this Prepmate is attached to the centrifuge tubes, the syringes where the sample is taken out, and then it is put into the centrifuge tube. And this is centrifuged 2 times. So if we see after first centrifugation, we see that a lot of debris, blood, mucus is taken out, and after second centrifugation, you get a cell enriched pellet. So this pellet actually goes on onto this area in the fully automated robotic processor, and then there is a arm which takes out sample from here to here. So in one go you can prepare 48 samples, and it takes 2 hours to prepare 48 samples, and you get a slide like this which is 13 millimeter diameter, and this processor has stain bottles attached. So there is a bottle of imetoxylin, and there is a bottle which contains E and OG together. So it stains the slides and you get the stained slide. But if you don't want to stain the slide by this machine, you can take out the slide at the unstained level, and you can, like for non-gynae, we take out these slides unstained, and then you can do AFP staining or ZN, I mean this is ZN or PS or any other stain, or even ICC on these smears can be done. So liquid-based cytology samples, the slides can be used for special stains also. So recently in PGI we've purchased this fully automated machine, BD Totalis. So all those initial steps which were manual in that previous machine are being done in this. So it is like a floor based machine, almost 10 feet height. So and the cost of this machine is around 1.52 CR. So everything is automated. You just need to put the sample here and you will get the slides in again 2 hours, 48 slides in 2 hours. So if I want to compare conventional smears from liquid-based cytology samples, these are more homogeneous with uniform presentation. Fixation is uniform because cells are lying in a fluidy material. Then they are thin uniform samples with far less inflammation, blood and mucus. So if I say it is less inflammation, blood, mucus, it doesn't mean that if it was a hemorrhagic sample or if it was an inflammatory sample, I'll not be able to make out that this was an hemorrhagic sample. Everything is represented on the slide. It's just the presentation is different, and I'll show you in my next slides how blood can be detected in liquid-based cytology and how inflammatory smears look like. Background is usually clean, and in a conventional smear where we were expected to see or find out atypical cells in around 3 lakh or 5 lakh cells, now you have lesser number of cells. So it is just 50,000 to 70,000 cells, and atypical cells are present homogeneously throughout the smear. Nuclear details are more clear. So whatever we read in books, the chromatin, the nuclear membrane thickness, nuclear membrane irregularity, nucleoli, everything is seen, and you have to adjust your threshold of calling something atypical based on these nuclear details, because everything would be seen. Like even a smaller irregularity, you have to maybe set your threshold that okay, metaplastic cells can show slight irregularity of nuclear membrane. These are circular smears and they are different in SurePath and ThinPrep, and residual samples can be used for additional smears, HPV and other molecular tests. And we've seen that liquid-based cytology, in SurePath at least, we have extracted DNA even after 1 year of taking the sample, and you could actually get good quantity and quality of DNA from these residual samples. You don't have to keep these in fridge, but because our in summers our room temperatures are also very high. Sometimes for epithelial abnormalities we keep these samples in fridge. Otherwise these can be kept at room temperature. So on morphology, what is the difference? When we are preserving these samples in liquid medium, they tend to round up. So they are rounded, and because they are present in alcohol, they are smaller in size as compared to larger, like normal conventional smears. Your cell aggregates are smaller, they are evenly spread. Blood and polymorphs are there, but they're not obscuring squamous cells. It has improved staining, homogeneous cell distribution, maybe lesser cell to cell association. So the kind of exodus we used to see in conventional smears is less commonly seen in liquid based cytology, but you will see histiocytes in the background. But criteria to say something as SIL remains the same. So the criteria for SIL is same. We've seen that glandular lesions are more commonly seen in liquid based cytology, probably because of effective sampling, more representative transfer, and improved morphological presentation. And I've worked with Nick Dutting, and he used to be very much fascinated with endometrial cells, endometrial adenocarcinomas, and we've seen so many cases of endometrial adenocarcinomas, even carcinosarcomas or MMMTs in liquid-based cytology, and you can confidently diagnose these cases on liquid-based cytology. So all these are examples of glandular lesions which have been seen on liquid-based cytology, like AIS or endocervical adenocarcinomas, IUCD changes, and endometrial adenocarcinoma. So what, if you ask me one advantage of liquid-based cytology, it is reduction in inadequate rate. In conventional smears, it was around 10%, and in liquid-based cytology, it's around 1 to 2%. Because we are not repeating these smears, the benefit to women is in reducing anxiety. We don't keep calling them for repeat samples. Workload has reduced, and productivity of liquid-based lab is increased because now we say that liquid based cytology it takes almost 3 to 4 minutes to report as compared to 7 to 8 minutes for a conventional smear. The reduced number of false negatives, improved detection of LCLs and HCLs, and glandular lesions. So only disadvantage is cost of the machine. And I think in SurePath, the DTS machine, which has come up for smaller labs and can prepare 4 samples at a time, has taken care of that cost also. So ThinPrep versus SurePath, it is methanol-based preservative. It is 20 ml. It is 10 ml of ethanol-based preservative. Here the brush head is rinsed in the vial. Here the brush head is left in the vial. So it is important to differentiate. Then smears are of different sizes. Residual samples can be stored here for 4 weeks as opposed to 6 months. It works on filtration. This works on density gradient. Orange color is not lost here because it is a routine PAP staining, but here EA and OG are mixed together. So a bit of orange color is lost in SurePath. And then we can do hybrid capture on all samples. But if you have used acetic acid in ThinPrep samples, then you may not get hybrid capture testing on this. So this, I just wanted to share this study, which was evaluation of feasibility and appropriateness of liquid-based cytology in cervical cancer screening in resource constrained settings. So this we did with IIT Chennai, and we actually recruited 5,000 women, in which we did conventional PAPs, liquid-based cytology. All women were undergoing colposcopy, and we set the threshold at ASCUS and HCL level and took biopsies. And it was seen that liquid-based cytology has superior clinical performance as opposed to VIA conventional PAPS tests. And if you see, HCl detection rate in liquid-based cytology is higher, and sample inadequacy rate is lower in liquid-based cytology. So you can say that here also it is 5%, but we were doing a lot of stuff in these women, like we were doing VIA, we were doing conventional smears. So that is why in in good number of cases we had a lot of hemorrhage also in these samples. But this was a study which showed that liquid based cytology shows a superior performance as opposed to other screening tests. So with this, I'll go to morphological aspects. We can actually skip infections. These are clue cells. This is like pizza topping of TVs. So when it comes to liquid-based cytology, TVs, they are mostly seen sticking onto the surface of squamous cells. And you can see this Chinese eye-like nucleus and reddish granules. And sometimes even in liquid-based cytology, you can see the flagella also. So that's the difference. One is reddish granules. Second, they tend to stick onto the surface and we call them pizza toppings. These are the same, and we basically look for the history of IUCD, actinomycetes, then shish kebabs of Candida. They are more commonly seen. This appearance is more commonly seen in liquid-based cytology. 3 M's of herpes and Cowdery A and B bodies. And we have seen liquid-based cases of tuberculosis, the granulomas in liquid-based cytology, and you have to have like again some experience in calling these granuloma. Like if you see, these are slipper shaped organisms, but they're so light and the contrast is not there. So it actually, the one starts picking up these cases based on giant cells. So if you see a lot of giant cells, some atypia in squamous cells, you should look for granulomas. And now we have started picking up a lot of cases of these granulomas. So on biopsy, this is the endocervical lining, and there are caseating granulomas with AFP positivity. This can be seen anywhere, microfilaria. With this, we go to Bethesda system of epithelial cell abnormalities, which is the important thing, and we are screening these smears just not to miss HCL cases. So we should not miss any epithelial abnormality, but we cannot afford to miss HCLs. Poilocytes, it's easy. These are larger cells, easier to pick up on liquid-based cytology. They are superficial or intermediate cells. They will show this hollow clearing around the nucleus. Some hyperchromasia, irregular nuclear membrane, resin-like nuclear membrane must be seen. Some irregularities there. Dyskeratosis, multinucleation, and if you see the peripheral condensation of cytoplasm, it should be so sharp as if somebody has drawn a line with pencil. So these two are coilocytes, and these are just mimics. So this is an atrophic sample which shows a pseudocoilocyte, and if you think there is an LCL in an atrophic smear, you should be very sure before calling LCL in an atrophic smear, because in atrophy these parabasal cells can show this kind of clearing. And this is just progesterone effect, which shows this golden to pink material within the cells, and this is progesterone, this is glycogen. So progesterone effect in late secretory phase. So these are pseudocoilocytes, and these are true coilocytes which would be reported as LCL. But you can have LCL without coilocytes. Here you have more nuclear atypia. We say it should be at least 3 times the size of a normal intermediate cell, and you can see this nucleus is actually around maybe 4 times the size of a normal intermediate cell nucleus. More hyperchromasia, irregular nuclear membrane, and no definite coilocytes. So this is again LCL. But if you start seeing these darker cells with orangiophilic cytoplasm, you should also look for HCL cells. Then what is ascus? Ascus is something which is morphologically exceeding your benign process, and the morphology is falling short of cell. So if I report something as ASC US, means I am struggling between a reactive process versus an LCL, and ASC is reactive versus HCL. And Bethesda, as a quality control, says that your ASCUS report should not be more than 5% of all reported smears, and ASCUS-SIL ratio should be around 2 to 3 is to 1. So if I report 3 ASCUS, SIL can be 1 only. So that is the ratio usually followed. And this is like something which tells you there is an HPV infection, there is dyskeratosis or angiophilia, this slight hyperchromasia, multinucleation, but they are not typical coilocytes. Or there are some intermediate cells which show slight nuclear enlargement, but it is less than 3 times the size of a normal intermediate nucleus. So these are the cases where we use ASCUS term, and they should be triaged with the HPV testing. Then comes AskH. AskH is like there are morphological subgroups. If there are some cells which are poorly preserved and they're showing a lot of nuclear membrane irregularities or degenerate cells. Sometimes there are microbiopsies which are difficult to categorize. So prominent nucleoli is a feature of invasive cancers. You do not see prominent nucleoli in cell lesions, but if there are prominent nucleoli and you cannot put them into reactive versus invasion, sometimes we report them as AskH, and the immature metaplasia is always difficult, and these are cases which go into AskH. So this is a part of audit where all these smears were reported as AskH, and on follow-up histology, on follow-up biopsy, you can see these cells have deep indentations. So if I say this nucleus is like walnutty nucleus with deep indentations, you will agree to this. Look at the high NC ratio. So this is HCl. This is also HCl. There are deep indentations, bad chromatin, and one thing is irregularly distributed chromatin. So if I see more granules here, less granules here, that is also indicative of dysplasia. This is a degenerate metaplastic cell, and this is ATP of atrophy, which can be seen in normal atrophic samples. So on follow-up biopsies, these were HCLs and these were just benign lesions. Similarly, these are microbiopsies, and if you see this microbiopsy is thick, I cannot see through the center. This is again thick, I cannot see through the center, but these are shallow microbiopsies, maybe 2 cell thick or something. There are mitotic figures here, and there are prominent nucleoli, but these two are reactive cells and these two are H cells. And we will go into details how to uh, categorize these cells as H cells, and these are both are non-neoplastics. So HCl plus lesions. So the whole idea of screening pap smears is not to miss HCl plus lesions, and HCl can present as microbiopsies predominantly. Classical means it will have microbiopsies as well as conventional like scattered cells, very small cells which are actually indicative of high cell. Pale cell dysplasia means the cells are there but they do not have hyperchromasia. But if you are able to pick up these cells, you will find irregular chromatin distribution and other things. Syncytial HCl, scanty HCl means less than 30 cells in a smear will sometimes be missed, and so we say there was dysplasia but it was scanty, and we'll go into these rarer forms. So if I talk of SurePath, this is the problem area, which is hyperchromatic crowded cell groups or microbiopsies. And what is a microbiopsy? Like anything, any cluster of cells, which is like more than 15 cells, can look like a microbiopsy. A cluster of metaplastic cells or a tubal metaplasia or atrophy, and even all neoplastic lesions can present as microbiopsies. So they look darker in LOPAR, and you have to start from the periphery because most of these microbiopsies will have thicker centers. So start from the lower periphery and start seeing what type of cells you have. So if you have cells with cytoplasm all around, they are mostly schimoid. First of all, ask yourself, is it a squamous microbiopsy or a microbiopsy coming from glandular cells? If these are thick, you cannot see through the center, they are mostly HCl microbiopsies. And look at the architectural chaos. So how will I assess this is showing loss of polarity? I try to draw lines across nuclei all around. So if I cannot do that, it means the cells are showing cellular overlapping. So if there is overlapping, it means there is loss of polarity. And then we start seeing nuclear pleomorphism, chromatin, and other things. So this is a microbiopsy. You can see the cells at the periphery, and the cells have different shapes. They have bad chromatin, and again here you can see the shapes of the cells, irregular nuclear membranes and chromatin. And then there are some cells which are falling off. You can see a mitotic figure here. So these are HCl microbiopsies. Again, this is a block-like microbiopsy, and if you see the chromatin here, it is really bad. There are bigger cells and there are mitotic figures. So I'm not saying mitotic figures cannot be seen in reactive atypia also. You can have mitosis, but you do not have any prominent nucleoli here. These are just chromocenters which are very prominent, and these are mitotic figures. So these are all HCl microbiopsies. Then HCl in metaplastic cells, you can see these deep indentations or longitudinal grooves like pecan nut like nuclei. So we say that walnutty or pecan nut like HCl in metaplastic cells. So these are smaller cells as compared to superficial or intermediate cells. Syncytial variety means the individual cells will not have typical cell membrane, and that is why it becomes difficult at times to say whether it is Syn2 or Syn3, like moderate or severe dysplasia. So this is HCl in syncytial variety. Small cell is HCl in very small sized cells, but if you are able to pick up these cells on your screening, you will say this it as at least as H or HCl. And pale cells means as compared to the surrounding cells which are darker, these cells they look paler. But if you see this cell, you can see this is showing deeper indentations, irregular nuclear membrane. Now people have started talking of irregular thickness of nuclear membrane also. So here you have this chromatin sitting here, and it looks like membrane is thicker, but membrane is thinner here. And these cells, if you are able to pick up on routine screening, you will call them as HCl. So this is HCl in pale cell type. Keratinizing squamous cell carcinoma is not very difficult to diagnose most of the times because of these lot of dyskeratosis, variation in shape and size, lot of tadpole cells, spindle cells. But keratinizing HCl can also show tadpole cells and spindle cells. The thing which needs to be seen is tumor diathesis. And in squamous cell carcinomas, we basically look for clinging diathesis in liquid-based cytology. A large cell non-keratinizing squamous cell carcinoma, especially in shore path, can have prominent nucleoli and slightly fuzzy cytoplasm. So differentiation from endocervical adenocarcinoma sometimes can be difficult, but our gurus say that most of the times when you are struggling between a large cell non-keratinizing squamous cell carcinoma versus adeno, go for squamous, because this is a cervical smear and majority of lesions would be squamous lesions. So this is reactive repair with very prominent nuclei, but if I want to draw lines across nuclei on the upper left, this is repair, as opposed to this which is showing cannibalism, the clinging diathesis, and this is a squamous cell carcinoma. Again, this is cannibalism and clinging diathesis, as opposed to just atrophic smear which shows blood in the lower panel of this slide. Benign endocervicals and endometrials are very commonly seen in liquid-based cytology samples. Endocervical cells are always larger. They are two-dimensional arrangements. They'll have honeycombs or picket fences. Multinucleation is more common, and they have fine pale chromatin as opposed to dark chromatin of endometrials. So we say in endometrials you have variation in shape, and in endocervicals you see variation in size, but the cells will remain round. So this is picket fence and honeycomb of endocervicals. This is top hat appearance of endometrials, and you can see the variation in shape. So all cells are looking similar in size, but they are showing this variation in shape. And top hat is like stromal cells surrounded by epithelial cells, which is seen in normal endometrial cells. When it comes to AIS, you see increased cellularity of endocervical cells. And somebody asked that if it is like older female and you see a lot of endocervical cells, do we report? We usually write that like a lot of endocervical cells are seen, but if they are benign looking, most of the times they are because of endocervical polyp or erosion. But if you see a lot of strips like this, which show this kind of pseudo stratification, like nuclei at different levels, and they're going out of this strip like a bird tail appearance, then it is AIS. It is possible that the chromatin abnormalities or nuclear abnormalities are subtle, but AIS is a diagnosis on architecture. So if you see this long elongated cells which are endocervical in origin, and you see a lot of sheets, rosettes and short strips, go to strips and evaluate them. If there is a community border, bird tail like appearance means feathering. So it should be straight strip as opposed to feathered strip with lot of pseudostratification. So if it is like bird tail, it is AIS, a case of AIS. Most of the times the biopsies are shallow microbiopsies and you can see through the center. When it comes to nuclear features, they are mostly elongated cells. They are elongated cells and they just come out of the cytoplasm. So you will not see cytoplasmic rim around the cell, and we say snake and egg appearance. When it is not invading, you will not see nucleoli. Whether it is HCIL or adenocarcinoma in situ, if it is not invasive, nucleoli would be inconspicuous. So cigar-shaped cells with snake and egg appearance means nuclei bulging out of cytoplasm. Nuclei bulging out of cytoplasm is one thing which goes for AIS. So these are like pseudo rosettes of AIS, and you can again see a bird tail appearance in this lower panel where there is a community border, and then there are cells which are going out of that strip. When it comes to AGC, NOS, AGC, FN and AIS, the cellular arrangement and everything actually starts increasing towards AIS. You see more feathering, nuclear membrane irregularities, less cytoplasm, hyperchromasia, more strips and rosettes in AIS. And at times you have to differentiate HCIL and AIS, especially in SurePath. When it comes to HCIL, you can see this wrapping of cells, or you can see these strips which show the cells falling off. And people have seen that when HCIL involves endocervical strips, you can have these two patterns, wrapping or pseudostratification. And when there is pseudostratification, it can look like AIS. So we basically depend on whether it is snake and egg appearance, like nuclei not showing cytoplasm, or you have cytoplasm all around the nuclei. Endometrial adenocarcinomas are more common than endocervicals in pap smears because as such endometrials are more common, but you will see normal background, normal squamoid cells with very few clusters of such cells which show this mulberry-like balls of cells. Each cell is protruding like a cluster, and these are like berry-like clusters, and they show very prominent nucleoli. In addition, you can see these bags of polyps, which could be tumor cells or histiocytes showing a lot of polymorphs. And you have to differentiate from IUCD changes. And sometimes you see these samoma bodies and ovarian papillary serous carcinomas also in pap smears. We've seen cases of melanomas and colonic carcinomas rarely in pap smears, and even breast cancers like ILC, lobular carcinomas in breast cancers. So with this, I'll just touch upon non-gynae samples. Like in gynec uh, cytology, we in non-gynae samples we make one MGG, one LBC, and all the sample goes into cell block where we prepare this cell conventional versus cell LBCs, and you can see the density gradient has done wonders here. As opposed to conventional smear, the cellularity is much more. You could see samoma bodies. You could do IHC on cell blocks and say that this is papillary serous carcinoma or serous carcinoma of ovary in ascitic fluid. We've seen around 10 to 15% of cases where conventional smear didn't show any cells, but in LBC you could see these papillary clusters. So LBC actually concentrates your samples and helps in removing the blood. Similarly, pseudomyxoma peritoni, these are conventional smears and these are LBC smears. So mucus is also represented in LBC smears. So this is my last slide. I'll say that liquid-based cytology offers advantages both in gynae and non-gynae samples. It reduces unsatisfactory rate in pap smears from maybe 10 to 15% to 2%. Added advantage is cellular concentration in non-gynae, especially in hemorrhagic paucicellular samples. It concentrates your sample. Cervical cytology is more challenging, and it takes almost maybe 3 to 4 months, 3 to 6 months, depending upon your workload, to be comfortable with cervical cytology in absence of conventional cytology, because you are taking direct sample into liquid-based cytology. You can do any type of special stains, ICC on liquid-based cytology samples, and HPV DNA testing. Cell block preparation can also be done from liquid-based residual material. So we have seen that especially in glandular lesions where we have some doubt, we from the residual material we have prepared cell blocks, and if you do P16, you can say that this is HPV related dysplasia, and automation is a way forward for any screening program.